Hello and welcome to an update of the Perionyx bin and the Red Wiggler only bin. We'll start the update with the blue worm bin. So you can see this is the side that we harvested. I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and we filled up the empty side with new bedding. And this is where we were feeding before. And you can see the difference in the worked over material compared with the new bedding. A lot of castings here. Actually, it's mostly castings, I would say. And of course, some bedding at the bottom. But they make quick work of all this material. And before you know it, it's time to harvest again, which is not bad, right? So I'm just going to see what they did with the food. Aside from just the cob is left, they make quick work of that corn. And it's going to take a while for this to decompose. So I can't really even say that that is enough food for them. But just look at these guys. That's a blue worm. I keep saying that if you have worms in your bin that look like this and move quickly like this, those are not red wigglers, those are blue worms or a Perionyx. And they're perfectly good composting worms. They're just a little bit more finicky when it comes to temperature and conditions of the bin in general. They can be very flighty. And once you get the hang of composting, they are perfect worms. Perfect worms. You can have them together with the red wigglers. They will cohabitate beautifully together. Absolutely no issues there. So I'm thinking that I can just incorporate the material and not worry about which side was worked over and not, because now the bin is already harvested and I'm not ready to harvest anytime soon. So we can just work all the bedding in. The worms are not going to be happy with me, but they'll forgive me because I feed them. Okay, so we'll just bury this and feed in a corner. I'm going to check my gloves as usual. They are very tiny and they stick to the glove. Okay. So I don't think I'm going to give any bedding right now. We still have plenty of bedding. And they are going to get something very interesting. This is leaching. Leeches or leeches, or I don't typically eat this. A friend of ours brought this, and it's already moldy. So yeah, they're gonna get to eat that. It's still in the shell even, but it's pretty nasty. So we're just gonna cover that up. Whew. And see what they do with this. So these guys look good, material looks good. I turned the bin over, fluffed everything up, and let's go over to the red wiggler bin. Okay, so here we are with the red wiggler only bin. And same thing here, you can see that I added plenty of bedding. And you can also tell that this is a nice red wiggler. You see he's not really moving around a lot. that's how they are. So when you have the worms who go zippity-doo-dah all around the bin, you know you got those blue worms. And you can see again the difference in the material, the bedding and the castings. The castings also feel very silky to the touch, unlike used coffee grounds that can be kind of gritty, sandy. The castings are very, very silky and quite dark. Black, basically. You can also tell by the weight of your bin. So when you just start a bin and you put in paper and cardboard and kitchen waste, the bin is very light. Once it fills up with castings, it is quite heavy because castings retain a lot of moisture. So these guys are looking good. Lots of babies, if you can tell. Lots and lots of babies. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to incorporate the material, the old material with the new material, because we're using the whole bin now. This one has been harvested as well. We are in the process of getting the European Nightcrawler bin harvest and using the horizontal migration. I'll show you that in a minute, but this can be incorporated, and these guys can basically use the whole bin. Plus the castings will keep the bedding nice and moist. There we go. Again, I'll bury the corner and the cob here. Well, the cob. And then we are going to feed in this section right here. I won't be adding any bedding right now, just like the blue worm bin, but they're going to get the same food here. That smelly fruit. Wow. See all that mold? You're gonna love it. Love it. Now that's green mold, it's not black mold. Don't get those confused. So we fed. I know I had a spoon in here somewhere to mark. Not sure what I did with it. Oh, here it is. There we go. So I don't forget. Okay, so these guys are done, and let's go over to our European Nightcrawler bin. Okay, so here is the European Nightcrawler bin, and I keep it covered with this shade cloth. I fold it in fours. It's a lot of material here, but what it does is it gets air in and it gives them plenty of darkness, and this helps. It just keeps the material from getting too wet, since I'm feeding nice wet food on the other side to entice them. It keeps this material from absorbing all that wetness. But you can see how beautiful the castings are. And if we do a side by side, so this is the European Nightcrawler bin, and this is the red wigglers. You can see that amount of bedding in here, even though you do have a lot of castings here as well, but it's a lot of bedding. Whereas here, there's very little bedding, and it's mostly castings. So that's when you know that you pretty much can, if you wanted to, harvest. Whatever bedding is left when I sift, it just goes right back into the bin and the worms rework it. Not a problem. So I've been feeding on this side. I put in new bedding and food, and the worms just slowly make their way to that area. Of course, there will always be worms that refuse to migrate, and that's fine. They'll go through the sifting process, but the majority of the worms will migrate given just a little bit of time. And that way they won't be stressed and they won't be sifted. So here they are. You can see there's a whole lot of them here. I'm trying not to bother them too much because these are feisty guys and they don't want to be disturbed. I don't want them crawling all over the place. So I'm going to add a little bit more food to this area. Again, it's going to be a wet feeding, and it's going to be fruit because I know they love, love, love fruit. And if my purpose here is to get them as quickly as possible to this side, then I want to make it as enticing as I possibly can for them and make sure that everything stays really nice. We could even say wet on this side. And then I cover it to make sure it's all nice and dark for them and leave them alone. But then meanwhile, this stuff, it's ready to be sifted. I can sift this anytime I want because it's in the perfect condition to be sifted. I'm just waiting for more worms to make their way to that side. But you can see this is how I love my castings. Nice and flaky, even the bottom ones, nice and flaky. And no, they're not at all dry because just a little squeeze and just look how they retain their shape. That's how you know that they are in good condition, not too wet, not too dry. So that's our update. We'll leave these guys alone. And I'll be harvesting this bin in no time at all. So thanks for joining me. And I hope I cleared up a few things regarding the when the castings are ready to be harvested.